The Discoverith bitter wind of Kethera Prime howled across the jagged cliffs like a dying beast. Engineer David Mitchell pulled his thermal coat tighter as he checked the mining equipment. Scattered across the rocky plateau, the planet's twin, suns barely provided warmth through the thick atmosphere, casting everything in an eerie orange glow. David had been stationed on this remote world for 8 months, maintaining the automated mining systems that extracted precious minerals from the planet's core. It was lonely work, but he preferred the solitude to the crowded space stations where most humans lived. Here, among the ancient stones and endless skies, he found peace. As he approached the eastern cliff face to repair a damaged sensor ray, something caught his eye. A figure lay motionless among the rocks, partially hidden by fallen debris. David's heart raced as he scrambled down the steep incline, his boots slipping on loose gravel. The being before him was unlike anything he had ever seen. Her skin was a pale blue-silver, almost translucent, with delicate patterns that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. Long, silver hair spread around her like liquid mercury, and her features were hauntingly beautiful despite the obvious signs of exhaustion and cold. She was barely breathing, her lips tinged with a darker blue that suggested severe hypothermia. Her clothing was torn and inadequate for Kethera's harsh climate. David could see she was from an unknown alien species, but in that moment, all that mattered was that she needed help. Without hesitation, he scooped her fragile form into his arms. She was surprisingly light, her body cold as ice against his chest. Her eyes fluttered open briefly, revealing irises that swirled like liquid starlight, but she was too weak to speak or resist. David carried her back to his habitat dome, a small but well-equipped shelter that had been his home for months. The automated systems immediately began warming the interior as he entered, and he carefully laid her on his sleeping platform. His hands shook as he activated the medical scanner, unsure if the human-designed equipment would work on her alien physiology. The readings were strange but indicated severe hypothermia, dehydration, and malnutrition. She was dying, and he was her only hope. David wrapped her in thermal blankets and adjusted the habitat's temperature controls to maximum. He prepared a warm nutrient solution, hoping her digestive system could process it. As he worked, he couldn't help but wonder how she had ended up alone on this desolate world. Her breathing gradually became less labored, and some color returned to her skin. David sat beside her through the night, monitoring her vital signs and ensuring she stayed warm. Sometimes she would murmur in a language he didn't recognize, her voice melodic even in distress. By morning, her condition had stabilized. David prepared a simple breakfast and waited nearby, ready to help if she awakened. The habitat felt different with another presence inside, less empty somehow. When her eyes finally opened fully, they found his immediately. There was fear there, but also curiosity. She tried to sit up but was too weak, so David gently helped her, offering the warm drink he had prepared. She studied him with those mesmerizing eyes, then tentatively accepted the cup. Her fingers were long and graceful, with a subtle luminescence that fascinated him. She sipped carefully, never taking her gaze from his face. "Who are you?" she whispered in accented but clear English, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "David," he replied softly. "David Mitchell, you're safe now." She nodded slowly, processing this information. "I am Zara," she said. "I thought I would die on those rocks, not while I'm here." David assured her, surprised by the conviction in his own voice. Something about this mysterious being had already begun to change him, awakening protective instincts he didn't know he possessed. As Zara's strength slowly returned over the following days, David began to understand that finding her among those cold stones wasn't just a rescue mission, it was the beginning of something that would transform both their lives forever. Building trust. 3 days had passed since David found Zara on the cliffs, and she was growing stronger with each passing hour. Her silver skin had regained its natural luminescence, and she could now move around the habitat without assistance. But trust was a more delicate thing to rebuild. Zara spent most of her time near the observation window, gazing out at the harsh landscape that had nearly claimed her life. David watched her sometimes, noting how she seemed to study every rock, formation, and shadow as if memorizing escape routes. He understood her caution. She was stranded on an alien world with a being she barely knew. "The morning light is different here," she said one day as David prepared their breakfast. Her English was improving rapidly, though she still spoke with that musical accent that made ordinary words sound like poetry. "Different from where?" David asked gently, hoping she might share something about her past. Zara's fingers traced patterns on the window's surface. "My homeworld has 3 suns. The light there is golden, warm even in winter. This orange glow feels cold." David set down 2 cups of the herbal tea he had learned she preferred. "What's your world called?" "Lysander," she said softly. "It's very far from here." Over the following days, their conversations grew longer and more personal. David learned that Zara was a xenobotanist, a scientist who studied plant life on different worlds. She had been part of a research expedition that went terribly wrong. "Pirates attacked our ship near the Kepler Nebula," she explained one evening as they shared dinner. "They were looking for our research data. Some of the plants we studied had valuable properties. I was in the escape pod storage bay when they boarded." David felt anger rise in his chest at the thought of someone hurting her. "How did you end up here?" "The escape pod was damaged. I managed to launch it, but the navigation system failed. I drifted for weeks before crash landing on those cliffs. By then, I was already weak from rationing water and food." She paused, looking directly at him. "If you hadn't found me." "But I did," David said firmly. "That's what matters." As Zara's strength returned, she began helping David with his work. Her scientific background proved invaluable when they encountered problems with the mining equipment's biological contamination. Filters. She had an intuitive understanding of how organic and mechanical systems could interact. Working together created a natural rhythm between them. David would explain the engineering aspects of their tasks, while Zara offered insights into the alien microorganisms that sometimes interfered with the machinery. Their different perspectives complemented each other perfectly. One afternoon, while they were calibrating a sensor ray, their hands touched as they reached for the same tool. Both froze, aware of the electricity that seemed to pass between them. Zara's luminescent skin actually brightened slightly, a phenomenon David found both beautiful and intriguing. "Your people," David said carefully, "do they form partnerships with other species?" Zara's expression grew thoughtful. "It's not forbidden, but it's rare. Most of my kind prefer to stay within our own communities." She studied his face. "What about humans? We're more adaptable," David replied. "We tend to find connection wherever we can." That evening, Zara made an unexpected gesture. She approached David while he was reviewing maintenance logs and placed her hand gently on his shoulder. Her touch was warm now, no longer the ice-cold contact of their first meeting. "David," she said quietly, "I want you to know, I'm not afraid anymore." He looked up at her, seeing something new in her starlight eyes. "Afraid of what?" "Of trusting you, of staying here, of what's happening between us." Her honesty was as direct as it was beautiful. David stood, turning to face her fully. "And what is happening between us?" Zara's skin shimmered with that subtle inner light. "Something my people have a word for, but no direct translation exists in your language. It means the warming of 2 hearts across the void." David felt his own heart skip at her words. "I think humans call it falling in love." She smiled then, the first truly radiant expression he had seen from her. "Yes, I believe that's exactly what we call it too." As the twin suns set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, David and Zara stood together at the observation window. The harsh world outside seemed less forbidding now, transformed by the warmth they had begun to create together. Challenges and comment meant to months after finding Zara. David's peaceful routine was shattered by an unexpected communication from the mining company. The message arrived on a standard frequency, crackling through the habitat's communication system during their morning meal. "Engineer Mitchell, this is Supervisor Harrison from Kepler Mining Consortium. We're experiencing some irregularities in your productivity reports. An inspection team will arrive at your station in 72 hours to assess the situation and perform routine maintenance checks." David felt his blood run cold. Zara, who had been tending to her plants, immediately understood the implications. her skin dimmed to its palest hue, the luminescent equivalent of going white with fear. "They can't find me here," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "If they discover an unregistered alien on their mining claim," David's mind raced. Kepler Mining had strict protocols about unauthorized contact with non-human species. At best, Zara would be turned over to colonial authorities for questioning and potential deportation. At worst, she could be treated as a security threat. "We have 3 days," David said, trying to sound calmer than he felt. "We'll figure something out." But as the hours passed, their options seemed increasingly limited. The habitat's escape pod had been damaged in a recent storm, and the nearest alternative shelter was weeks away on foot across hostile terrain. "I should leave," Zara said that evening, staring out at the darkening landscape. "I can try to reach the old research station in the northern sector. It's been abandoned for years. I might be able to survive there until another ship arrives." "Absolutely not," David replied firmly. "You barely survived the first time you were alone out there. I won't let you risk your life again." "Then what do you suggest?" Zara's frustration was evident in the way her skin flickered between different shades of silver. David was quiet for a long moment, then made a decision that surprised even him. "We leave together." Zara turned to stare at him. "David, this is your job, your life. You can't abandon everything for me, can't I?" David stood, moving to face her directly. "Zara, these past months with you have been the happiest of my life. This job, this isolated existence, it was just a way of hiding from living. You've shown me what it means to truly be alive." He took her hands in his, feeling the familiar warmth that passed between them. "I love you, not just as a companion or a friend, but deeply, completely. If staying here means losing you, then this place means nothing to me." Zara's skin began to glow brighter as emotion overwhelmed her. "You would give up your career, your security, everything you've built, here, for you, in a heartbeat." She was quiet for several moments, processing the magnitude of what he was offering. Finally, she spoke, her voice thick with emotion. "On Lysander, when do people make such a commitment? There's a ceremony. It's called the bonding of lights. Tell me about it," David said softly. Zara's skin continued to shimmer as she explained. "Both partners share something precious from their past, something that represents who they were before they met. Then they create something new together, symbolizing their combined future." David disappeared into his storage compartment and returned with a small, worn photograph, a picture of Earth taken from space, showing the blue marble of his home world against the black of space. "This was taken by my grandfather during one of the first deep space missions. It's been in my family for generations." Zara accepted the photograph with reverence, then reached into her belongings and produced a small crystal that glowed with internal light. "This is a seed crystal from Lysander's sacred groves. My mother gave it to me before I left on my research mission." Together, they created a small display case, using materials from David's workshop and Zara's botanical knowledge. They arranged the photograph and crystal together, adding samples of the hybrid plants Zara had created and a small piece of metal from David's first engineering project. As they worked, something wonderful happened. The crystal began to resonate with the nearby plants, causing them to emit a soft, harmonious glow. The photograph, too, seemed to capture and reflect this light, creating a beautiful interplay of colors and illumination. "It's beautiful," David breathed, watching the gentle light show their creation had produced. "It's us," Zara replied, taking his hand. "Two different worlds, two different natures, creating something entirely new together." They spent that night making plans for their departure. David would submit his resignation and arrange for emergency extraction, claiming a personal emergency. It would raise questions, but it would also get them both off Kethera before the inspection team arrived. As they lay together in the darkness, their improvised bonding display casting gentle patterns of light on the habitat walls, Zara whispered, "I never imagined that being stranded on a frozen world would lead me to find my home." David kissed her forehead gently. "Home isn't a place, Zara. It's wherever we're together, outside." The twin suns began to rise, painting the sky in familiar shades of orange and gold. Soon they would leave this harsh world behind, but they would carry with them the warmth they had created together, a warmth that no storm could ever extinguish. New Beginning evacuation shuttle arrived exactly on schedule, its engines creating a whirlwind of dust and debris as it settled onto the landing pad. David had hastily cleared. Captain Torres, a weathered woman with kind eyes, emerged from the craft with obvious concern. "Mitchell, your emergency transmission was pretty sparse on details. Are you injured? Equipment failure?" She paused as she noticed Zara standing beside him, her silver skin unmistakably alien even beneath the concealing environmental suit David had rigged for her. David had prepared for this moment, but his heart still raced as he spoke. "Captain, I need to request political asylum transport for both of us. This is Zara. She's a refugee from a pirate attack, and she's in danger if she remains here." Captain Torres studied them both with the calculating gaze of someone who had seen her share of complicated situations in the outer colonies. "Kepler Mining isn't going to be happy about this, Mitchell. Abandoning your post. Unauthorized contact with non-human entities. I know," David replied steadily. "I'm prepared to face the consequences." The captain's expression softened slightly as she observed the way David and Zara stood close together, their body language speaking of a deep connection. "How long has she been here?" 3 months, David answered honestly. "She crash-landed during a storm. She would have died if I hadn't helped her." Torres nodded slowly. "And now?" David looked at Zara, drawing strength from her presence. "Now we're bonded. According to both our culture's traditions, we want to build a life together." The captain was quiet for a moment, then made her decision. "Get your essential belongings. We leave in 20 minutes. I'll file this as a humanitarian rescue operation and let the bureaucrats sort it out later." As they prepared to leave the habitat that had sheltered their growing love, David and Zara moved through the familiar space with mixed emotions. They were leaving behind the place where they had found each other, but they were also stepping into an uncertain future. "Are you ready for this?" David asked as they stood in the doorway, taking one last look at their shared home. Zara's skin glowed with that soft silver light that he had learned meant determination. "I'm ready for anything, as long as we face it together." The journey to the neutral colony of Haven Station took 3 days. During the trip, Captain Torres proved to be more than just their transport. She became their first ally in navigating the complex political landscape they were entering. "Haven Station has special provisions for interspecies couples," she explained during one of their meal times. "It's one of the few places in this sector where your relationship will be legally recognized without question. There are also opportunities for both of your skill sets there." David learned that Haven Station desperately needed engineers with his experience, while Zara's expertise in xenobotany was highly valued for the station's agricultural development projects. When they finally docked at Haven Station, David was amazed by the diversity he saw. Humans worked alongside a dozen different alien species, creating a vibrant, cosmopolitan community unlike anything he had experienced on the isolated mining worlds. They were assigned temporary quarters while their asylum applications were processed, but the bureaucratic concerns seemed almost trivial now. What mattered was that they were together, and they were free to build whatever life they chose. On their first night in their new temporary home, they stood together on the observation deck, watching the stars wheel slowly past the station's massive viewport. The artificial gravity and atmosphere made everything feel stable and secure. But David found himself missing the wild beauty of Kethera's harsh landscapes. "Do you regret leaving?" Zara asked, as if reading his thoughts. David considered the question. "Seriously, I regret leaving the place where we fell in love, but I don't regret choosing you over everything else. That world was just a place. He gestured between them. "This is life." Zara's skin shimmered with joy, and she moved closer to him. "I received word today that a Lysander diplomatic vessel will be passing through this sector next month. They're willing to carry a message to my family to let them know I'm alive and well." "What will you tell them?" "That I found something I never expected to find. That their daughter is not lost. She's found her place in the universe." David wrapped his arms around her, marveling at how perfectly she fit against him. "And what about us? What's our next step?" Zara looked up at him with those swirling, starlight eyes that had captivated him from the first moment he saw them. We keep building, David. We find work that fulfills us. We create a home that reflects both our natures, and we show this diverse universe that love truly can bridge any divide. As if to emphasize her point, other couples passed by on the observation deck, humans with various alien species, all of them finding ways to blend their different natures into something beautiful and unique. David kissed Zara gently, tasting the future on her lips. Then let's build something amazing. Outside the viewport, the stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the small dramas of individual lives. But within the warm confines of Haven Station, two beings from different worlds had found something that transcended the cold vastness of space. A love that had begun with a simple act of compassion and grown into something that would warm them both for the rest of their lives. Their story had begun with Zara freezing on cold rocks, abandoned and alone. It continued with David's choice to offer warmth and care to a stranger. And now, as they planned their future together among the stars, their love had become a beacon of hope, proof that, even in the darkest, coldest corners of the universe, two hearts could find each other and create their own warmth that no storm could ever extinguish.